So while I have it out here and it's raining, I just did a video on disking, plowing and disking, then actually show you me disking. This is the engine I overhauled. Yeah, I painted on the filter, but after I put a little time on, I'll be changing that out to get the oil out of there from it's going to be, from the overhaul. I gotta this is one of the worst things I ever did, is this plate, and that leaks down there. And I'm debating on whether I should have a new plate just made that's a hair thicker. They don't make it thick enough. And I hate silicone. I didn't want to put silicone on it. And then the other thing is, these cheap gaskets, the head gasket sticks out a little bit. I think that's what caught this plate. And it leaks. Or, is it leaking at the bottom? Is it running down the side? I think maybe it's leaking at the bottom. But it's Reliance kit, the gasket kit. But anyway, I was going to show you on a WD all the little features. The lights adjust. You can slide them in or out. You just take this thumb screw, loosen it, slide them in or out. I don't know why you'd slide them in, but your belt pulley. So Allis did things real simple on these tractors. No frills, no thrills. This set screw with a jam nut, it's pointed, and it goes into a hole in this belt pulley. The belt pulley is slid in. This whole thing slides in. It's got a cork gasket that's kind of a bear to put in if you don't know what you're doing. So right now it's slid out of, it's out of mesh with the gear. But you loose back this out, you slide it in, you screw it in, and now it's engaged. And I know I got a mark. When you do that, the holes are not, there's holes all the way around this tube. And when you do this, you make sure you put it in the same hole. There's an adjustment for backlash, and the holes are a little bit off, and you find the right backlash, and that's the hole you always use. So then, I've painted it, but there's a mark that I put on here and in the frame, and you line up. I think I put a mark. It's been many, many years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. But anyway, you just make sure it goes into the same spot it was in, or the backlash would be too tight or too loose. Hydraulic pump. There's all your adjustments. It'll tell you. For delayed lift, hold position, drawbar control, which is what I got it on. You got all these screws. There's a screw down there. For drawbar control, you back that screw all the way up till it's hitting the housing. The thumb part is hitting the housing. That's where you put it. This screw, I don't think I mess with this is screw D. This is screw C, which you don't mess with when it's, for traction booster. This is screw B, which you back out so these plates aren't locked. The pin goes in. And then there's a screw down here. If you can see it, get my hand on it. Right? It's not a very good spot to see, but let's see if I can get a better angle. Anyhow, you have to trust me. There's a screw down here. Come, I can't operate this camera right. Anyway, and you have that one. That's screw A. And as it says here, turn that out of the body, so that unlocks the plate too. And you got your delayed lift and lots of adjustments for that. So that the front of the cultivator will pick up before the rear. I put this pin in new way back in the early 90s, like 1992. And for the clutch, and you had to, I think I had to have the side frame off. I don't remember. It was a real tight fit, but this thing always works itself out. So I wish I would have put Loctite on it years ago when I did that. The other one I had to use an air hammer to get it out. It was so sloppy. I put new bushings in this thing, and I added a grease zerk, or was there a grease zerk? I can't remember. Maybe there's always been a grease zerk on that. But I added a grease zerk to this. That I had to rebuild that. It's just your steering shaft, you know. And I rebuilt the hole there with carbon rod many years ago. And then I added a grease zerk, and just once, maybe if you're using it a lot, I mean, it doesn't have to be greased very often, but there's a grease zerk there. So I grease it. There's your oil pressure gauge. Not a very good spot for it, because it seems like this, when you're sitting in the tractor, this blocks your view, and you have to kind of bend one way or the other to see the oil pressure gauge. And this has got a D17 oil pressure, or oil pump in it, so I mean, it just about pegs that needle. It goes all the way to the L on normal. I had to rebuild. This casting was all busted out. All 2 out of the 3 holes, maybe all 3, I don't remember. So I welded them up and re-drilled the holes. And I welded washers to give it the boss, I guess you'd call it the boss, and ground them down. This one here, you can kind of see I didn't get it quite right. Like I say, it's 30 years ago. And then I drilled them and tapped them. I was going to have a machine shop do it. When they found out I stick welded it with just regular rod, nobody wanted to touch it, because I learned a lesson. You use milling rod with your welder, so it's a little softer, so they can drill and tap it. So I bought 2 or 3 taps, and I would tap until it got dull. Same thing with drill. I kept sharpening the drill. I went through 2 drill bits, I think. Sharpen the drill, sharpen the drill, and maybe 1 drill bit, but whatever. And I went through 2 taps. I'd tap, it'd get dull, I'd cut it off, taper it, tap some more, and I used up 1 tap, and then I got halfway through the other tap, and I got it. This is an early wide front with the 3 bolts. Later on, they come with 4 bolts, where they come out over here, and much better setup. So I also redid this pivot. I think I built up the shaft, and then just ground it down with a hand grinder, real careful. And I built up the hole with some carbon rod. And I put a grease zerk. There is a grease zerk. I don't think originally there's one supposed to be there. It's right kind of staring at you there on the top. And I don't believe they had a grease zerk on them. And, you know, like I say, it's 30 years ago. I'm pretty sure I added that. Same thing right here. I did a lot of, I don't know if I rebuilt. Somebody welded a bolt in there many years ago. So I don't think that was wore out. But I put a grease zerk there. And I might have built up the plate. I don't remember that it goes through. But the bolt itself, they added a bolt. Kind of looked hokey, but I guess nobody notices. Here's your temperature gauge. You can see that fine from where you're sitting. This is a no frill tractor. I got a Nelson muffler on it that I bought at a dealership in Spring Valley. 15 years ago. The Stanley rusted out. I didn't even have that much time on the Stanley, because I used to use this tractor for hand. And they had I went there to get a new muffler, and they had Stanleys, and I told them I'd like to get a Nelson. So they looked up, well, you can't get them anymore. But he said, just a minute, there's an old muffler laying in the back. He comes out and had an Allis Chalmers sticker on it. I might have told this story before. The old style, not the triangle corporate badge, but the old AC with the sun star behind it sticker on it with the price written like $4.29 or something. So he charged me 45 bucks. I thought that was still a good deal. And it sounds like it should sound. Of course, you got Allis's invention of the spin out wheels. Don't let them get rusty. I've moved this one from time to time. Or if you take these eccentrics apart, put never sees in there, but I use these enough. I never did put never sees, but someday I could, I guess. And I painted the nuts. They're supposed to be, zinc coated, but they're old and rusty, and so I just painted them. Same thing with the rims. They're supposed to be galvanized rims, and I painted them silver or aluminum, I think. I thought they looked better than the aluminum. These are off a WD-45. My tires were shot. So I just put them, so they're a little oversized for WD. If you squeeze these all the way in, they'll want to catch the fender in here. And because the 45, the fenders sit a little higher. I added the snap coupler. I think I got that at some kind of a swap meet many years ago. The actual snaps are from my D17 because they are stronger snaps and they won't come unlatched. I got the regular WD ones. I think they're actually for WD-45 or the later. They're solid like that, but it needs springs and they'd come unlatched. And I got springs, I just never put them on. And then I put the bell on too I got parts. A little slicker. I had something that had the pin hitch. When I first got this tractor running, it had the old just pin. And I thought, what a good thing the implements were light back then, because you wouldn't be able to line up anything heavy to get that pin in. There's where the decal goes for snap coupler. That's where it's supposed to go. Your drain, radiator drain. There's also, that's the block drain. There's also a drain right down anyway, where the bottom hose hooks up, there's a drain for draining the radiator. I had this generator switched over to 12 volt. The guy he's gone now, but he did it for me 10 years ago or more, 15 years ago. I don't know how you stop these from slobbering. This does not backfire, this tractor, but unless I just put a little bit too much oil in it, but they just always slobber a little oil out of there. See the Nelson muffler bolts on. That's part of the muffler. That's not a added bracket. That's part of the muffler. It's welded to it. And Nelson, see how it's shielded? Rain won't go into the manifold with that kind of a muffler with a Nelson. That's a new belt. She's a little bit loose. I have to tighten it up. Some of them, if they run distillate, they had louvers in here, and you adjusted them right here. And I've got them, and this tractor originally had them, but I never put them in. And I should, maybe one day when I have this apart again, I should put them in. But that's where you open and close your louvers for getting the right temperature. But that's really on the WCs needed that, because the early WCs, because they didn't have a thermostat at all. That's how you regulate. But they had a canvas in the front. But I think when you run distillate fuel, you got to run the engine a little warmer. Marvel carburetor. Your clutch pedals adjustable. They got grease zerks. I think the grease zerks were there originally. Here's your fill battery, and underneath is your wire diagram. It goes under the box. Under the lid, there's a decal. It's your wiring diagram. There's your fuel shut off. What else? I don't know if they originally came with this decal. I got my decals from Lyle Wacker way back, and he's gone too, and I don't know if anybody took over, but there's where your hand crank sits, which I've crank started this thing many times. That's unusual of me to leave this in gear. I never do that. Here's your choke and your starter, your hydraulic lever, and it's got all these notches, so you find the spot where, I don't know if I broke a spring. It just started doing that when I was out there disking. It shouldn't flop up like that, or this friction block is loose or something. But so you find the spot where, when you're in just normal ground, and these links, well, this don't have the links, got chains, but on the plow, you got solid links that snap in there. And when they're loose, you're all right. And then if it starts spinning, you find the spot where you don't spin. And then as you're going, these links should loosen up when it's good going, and then tighten up when it needs a little traction. But the plow should not lift at all if you got it adjusted right. And I've taken this to plowing plow day before. I've had it adjusted pretty right, and you can get it so you plow consistent depth. And these guys that say it lifts it out of the ground, that's not true unless you don't know how to adjust it. Your throttle, of course, is right here, and your stick, and this is your hand clutch, which is the best part about this tractor, is that hand clutch makes things. It's a great baling tractor. It just, if you push the foot clutch in, everything stops. PTO, hydraulics. If you use the hand clutch, just the transmission stops. PTO keeps going. You still got your hydraulics. And what I like about it is, in an emergency, you push in that clutch, everything stops right now. But I still have the option, and I always use that way more than I've used this. And it works out good. There's where you crank start it. You got gear oil that sits in here. I put a mixture of heavy oil and grease, and that's what you run in. There's your fill port, and you fill it. You take this cover off, and you fill it to I think just cover the gear. It steers really nice when it's moving. That's why they're, you don't see too many with power steering. Narrow front, I think, should have had power steering, but the wide front steers pretty decent for something with no power steering. So when I used to work at the Allis dealership back in the early 90s, the AGCO dealership, the old mechanics there told me that when the D17 first come out, these guys were used to how a WD and WD-45 steered with a wide front. So a lot of your early D17s didn't get power steering. They ordered them, and then they found out, hey, you got to have power steering. So that dealership converted quite a few of them to power steering, and then Allis made power steering standard within like the second or third year production on the D17. It's a must on a D17. I got one. I got a 58, no power steering, and it is a bear to steer. Keeps you in shape. I don't know what else I'm got to talk about on this. Yeah, I hate overspray too, but there it is. Oversprayed. Like I say, the filter will get oil be changed here after a little while. Oh, and I do have so there was an aftermarket deal to make it so the seat will flip, so the rain will stay off of it. And I have one, I've just never put it on. And I guess this thing usually sits in the shed. I'm going to let it get washed off. It's supposed to rain pretty good here. It's really, if you saw it, it looks better in the video here, but it's not really the right Persian orange. I think it's closer to Persian 2, and it's fading slowly. You know, I bought it. It was Herschel Adams I got the paint from, and it must have been I got it because it was cheaper, and it shows because it's starting to fade to it isn't the right color anymore. It's almost like if I polished it, the orange would come back, but it's like almost like it's turning pink, like those Fleet Farm paints turn. So maybe someday, or one of my kids or grandkids, if I ever get any grandkids, might repaint it, or I might do it someday. You know, come to think of it, I've replaced. This is a different radiator shell too, so that might be why the hole is there. And this tractor, it's a gas. It's definitely not a distillate. If you go by the serial number, it's not a distillate tractor. Let me see if I can find. So that might be why it has that. You know, I forget after so many years, but yeah. PA, that's the engine serial number. PA, I think, is gasoline, not the distillate block. It definitely doesn't have the distillate manifold. That's the gasoline manifold. I wonder why it never did that until it's not supposed to do that. So did I have a spring break somewhere, or so that gets hooked up there. Let's see. It just runs this. I think what happened is when I was plowing, it was so rough with big gopher mounds, I might have tweaked this a little bit and took the friction away. I noticed when I was driving, suddenly this block was flipped around, and I've never had that, and it was kind of hard to flip it back, and I had to really push on this lever to do it, and that might have screwed me up. So I'll have to figure out what the problem is there. And there, now that boot is all cracked, so I'm going to put a bucket over it now, a 5-gallon bucket. If it'll focus, there we go. And of course that's been on since the early 90s, so I guess you can expect that to crack. I got that, all the parts I got were from the Agco dealer when I first got this tractor running. And I put 175 pistons in it, and they're taller than a WD piston, but they got the cup in it. So by my measurements, it's about equivalent to the normal WD compression. I think I put a compression tester on this years ago, and it's right at the WD specs, factory specs. So if I ever put a 45 crankshaft in it, it'll have plenty of power. You know, probably rip out the PTO box if I ever put a feed mill on it. So there's another project. The Cease auction, they used to be Cease Equipment in Stewartville, Minnesota. They were an Allis Chalmers dealer, and they went out in the early 80s. Sold out. But then they just did auction yard. And this was their yard tractor. Pulled a generator, and they used it to start things. And it was there for, I think they used it for, well, they went right into auctioneering. I bet it's been there for 35 years at least. 30 to 35 years. And I bought it. They sold, he died, passed away, Mike did. And all this stuff went on this auction, and I bought this, and I bought another one that he had. And this is my future project. And it's got the headlight housings, but it needs lights, and it needs the little trim on the one there, and that one's chewed up. I don't know if that's original trim, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's a future project. So, seat, I'd like to get an original style seat for it. But anyway, that's what we got going. There's my field of corn. Another cornfield over there. And another one about 3 miles that way. So, that's all.